A 12,000-year-old clay figurine has been found in northern Israel. It depicts a woman and a goose and seems to be the earliest known representation of human-animal interaction. It's an amazing find, but there's something about it that most reports you'll read aren't talking about. However, we will be talking about it in due course. In the meantime, welcome to the show. It's Michael here.
It's Rupert here.
Yeah, and before we begin, if we could ask, if you do end up liking the show, to hit the like and subscribe buttons. And also, if you didn't know, this channel is made possible by subscribers to our Patreon page and also our Buy Me a Coffee campaign. You can find out how to join our Patreon community and all about our Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project via the links down below. So, that said, a clay figurine from 12,000 years ago in northern Israel. I suppose, Rupert, it'll help reinforce the significance of this and why we're talking about it in the first place if we give it a bit of context, don't you think? What you got?
Well, location-wise, it's not far away from Sea of Galilee, Natufian site. I mean, we're talking about, plumbing the Natufian period, 12,000 years ago. There's a lot of activity in the whole region around here, so it's not like this is an isolated site.
No. There's a lot of archaeology. Can we put it that way in this area?
Yeah, that's fair.
Archaeology is a national sport, and so it may be that there is that kind of tendency. But chronologically speaking, there are many other sites that are contemporary with this particular site, which the name of which Nahal and Gev 2. I don't know if we're pronouncing that or I'm pronouncing that right. But this is not far off the beginnings of Göbekli Tepe, for instance.
Time-wise,
the date we're talking about for this. Contemporary with Jericho, or the site of Tel Sultan, which is the archaeological site of Jericho, very, very early. And all sorts of other Natufian sites. Actually, a thing to do is, folks, if you want a bit of context, here's one we made earlier. There's a film we made about the 10,000 years before Göbekli Tepe. So that's handy, isn't it? So we don't want to dwell on it too much. But I thought we'd just mention that before we begin. Anything else before I start reading from the article then, Rupert?
No, I think it's just the distinction here really is that whilst, as Michael just said, a huge amount of archaeology goes on in the region, what sets this apart is it is the earliest known interaction between human and animal. That's essentially it. We don't find many sculptures at all in this period.
No.
So it is a fascinating find.
Before we start, a quick word about we're reading from an article from phys.org, and it's by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem for phys.org, edited by Sadie Harley and reviewed by Robert Egan. There you go. But I mean, the reason, if new to these shows, the reason we read from extant articles and not the original paper is original scientific papers tend to be extremely long-winded and not a criticism, but they just are. And dry. It's not a criticism, they just are. That's the way they're designed. Or dry-ish. Sometimes they're a bit soggy around the edges, but maybe we'll get into that. I don't know. We do it because it's a useful rails to run on. With that said, I will stop waffling about and continue. The headline of the piece is "The Woman and the Goose, a 12,000-year-old glimpse into prehistoric belief." Hold that thought. 12,000-year-old clay figurine unearthed in northern Israel depicting a woman and a goose is the earliest known human-animal interaction figurine. Found at the late Natufian site of Nahal and Gev 2, I should say. The piece predates the Neolithic and signals a turning point in artistic and spiritual expression, combining naturalism, light manipulation, and symbolic imagination. It reveals how early communities used art to explore the relationship between humans and the natural world. Are we right off to a slightly hyperbolic start there, perhaps? Do we want to say words about that or not?
Should we save it and come back to it?
Save it and come back to it. At a prehistoric village overlooking the Sea of Galilee, although it's 2 kilometres east of the Sea of Galilee, so I don't know if that counts as overlooking it. Yes, it's on the lower slopes of the Golan Heights, I believe, and the site was originally discovered when they were digging military entrenchments for near the Syrian border. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, archaeologists led by Dr. Laurent Davin, or Davin, apologies for mispronunciation, have uncovered a clay figurine unlike any found before. The 12,000-year-old artifact depicting a woman and a goose in what appears to be a mythological or ritual scene offers a rare window into the symbolic and spiritual world of early sedentary peoples in Southwest Asia. Discovered at the site of Nahal Engev II, a project led by Professor Leora Grossman of the Institute of Archaeology at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, with Professor Natalie Munro, describes the find as the earliest known figurine showing human and animal interaction and the first naturalistic depiction of a woman in the region. The study, published in PNAS, combines advanced analytical techniques to reconstruct the artifact's composition and its cultural significance. You can say that again about the advanced analytical techniques. So the figurine is only 3.7 centimetres tall. So it's a pretty tiny thing, modelled in local clay and heated at about 4,000 degrees centigrade, suggesting deliberate 400. What did I say? 4,000? 4,000,
yes. Close.
That would be 400 degrees centigrade, suggesting deliberate control of early pyrotechnology. Microscopic and chemical analyses revealed red pigment residues, ochre, on both woman and goose, along with a preserved fingerprint likely left by the young adult or adult female artisan. The sculptor used light and shadow to create depth and perspective, foreshadowing artistic innovations that would not flourish until the Neolithic. Depicting a woman crouched beneath a goose perched on her back, the scene suggests more than a simple act of daily life. The goose, common in the Natufian diet but also imbued with symbolic value, appears alive rather than hunted. Researchers interpret the composition as an imagined or mythological encounter consistent with animistic beliefs, a worldview that saw humans and animals as spiritually interconnected. The figurine was found in the fill of a semicircular stone structure containing burials and ceremonial deposits, part of the late Natufian settlement of Nahal Engev II, dated to approximately 12,000 years ago. The Natufian culture, spanning roughly 15,000 to 11,500 years ago, marks humanity's transition from nomadic foragers to settled communities. The discovery reveals that long before agriculture, these early villagers were already experimenting with narrative art, symbolic expression, and clay modelling techniques. Faunal remains from the site reinforce the connection between geese and ritual life. The bird's feathers were used for decoration, certain bones were fashioned into ornaments. The artistic focus on a goose and a woman, the researchers argue, points to an early mythic imagination, a symbolic vocabulary that later blossomed in Neolithic cults and figurative traditions across Northwest Asia. The discovery is extraordinary on multiple levels, says Dr. Laurent Davin, leading author of the paper. Not only is this the world's earliest figurine depicting human-animal interaction, but it's also the earliest naturalistic representation of a woman found in Southwest Asia. The Nahal Engev II figurine captures a transformative moment, says Professor Grossman. It bridges the world of mobile hunter-gatherers and that of the first settled communities, showing how imagination and symbolic thinking began to shape human culture. Beyond its craftsmanship, the piece embodies the earliest seeds of myth, storytelling, and spiritual connection, articulated in clay by hands that lived millennia before the rise of civilization. What do you think, Rupert?
Do you know, so that's all the salient information there from the article. If you, obviously we have read the source paper a few times, and it's fascinating. There's no taking away the fact that, you know, here is a representation, a sculpted representation of a woman with a goose draped over her head and shoulders. What troubles me is the fact that it's said with such certainty that it shows whatever animalistic ritual things. You know, you can take any number of interpretations from this. I don't think there's anything certain in here at all about it being the beginnings of storytelling, for example. And I mean, it could be, it absolutely could be, but there's nothing certain about it. But also, I think it's an important thing to bear in mind, where, you know, it says, and it says in the paper too, about how the artisan carefully crafted the use of light and shade and perspectives to make this figure to be really significant. And I think, well, has your child never come home from school with a clay figurine? You know, you make something in 3 dimensions, and by its very definition, it has light and shade. You know, I think when you look at the piece, there's nothing extraordinary in the artisan's skills here at all. This is what people do. The fact that it's the oldest one we've ever found doesn't alter the fact that humans do things like this. It is a shame, just a slight digression, it's a shame that this was found, as they said in the article, this was found in the fill. So it's not that it was excavated as a piece. This was jumbled up in the fill of the walls. And so it was already broken. And because it wasn't recognised at the time, because it just looked like another piece of pebble coming out, that they have no idea where the bottom of it is. There's no way that they could ever find the base of this little figurine. So we don't know if it was attached to anything else even. You know, it could have been sitting on the top of a pot. Nobody knows. It's... interpret what you want from this, you know, that you could read it as so for example, we have this image of, you know, shamanistic, you know, so a shaman with a wolf skin, maybe, so with the head of the wolf here, and then its skin around him. Well, you know, it could have been a shamanistic thing, because you've got the goose head coming over this woman's shoulder, and the wings around her shoulders. So it could have been that as well. You know, but
there's all sorts of things in the area have been interpreted as shamanistic. You remember the elderly woman that was found in a grave in what is it, Halzen Taktit, who was surrounded tortoise lady. She was surrounded by 50, no less than 50 tortoise shells, amongst other things. I think an eagle's wing, some cow's hip bones, and some bits of leopard and stuff around there. She was instantly labelled with shaman for some reason. Anyway, I digress. But it's not to diminish.
But it's a good point, though.
Yeah,
it's a good point, though, that, you know, tortoise lady, we do know that tortoise has been a very good source of food for people for a very long time. So this could have been the woman, you know, she could have, this could all have been the remains of food stuff for a long time. Same with geese.
The funeral party, the funeral feast.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
And quite a lot of tortoises were harmed during the making of this party.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we're making light
but it's
of
true, though. That's the thing. We need to be careful about interpretations, and it does worry me sometimes when things are put across with such certainty when they are very far from certain.
And we're not diminishing the work at all. I mean, were it not for the work, and the incredible forensic work that has been done on this piece, especially considering how tiny it is, 3.7 centimetres, that's nothing. And you'll see from the photographs shown here, the detail in which the piece has been examined, each individual mark on this piece of clay, which, I mean, hats off to anybody that recognised this as something significant in the first place, in the when being dug out, whether or not the base was retrieved, because it doesn't look like much on the face of it, but their ability to have extracted all the detail and determined that there was pigment applied to it. Great stuff. Our only beef, if you like, is with the overreach in kind of assigning almost sort of superhuman capabilities to the artisan that made it. Like you say, light, shade, and all those kinds of things. They come with the territory of making anything in clay or whatever medium you're doing it in, if it's in three dimensions. I'd be interested to know what tools were made. So it's this ascribing of skills. People had skills. If you've got a piece of clay, goodness gracious, what you going to do with it?
And also, when something is made from clay rather than stone, the fact that this has survived in the archaeological record with enough clarity to be recognised as such, that in itself is remarkable. And it does make you wonder how many, hundreds, thousands of pieces must have been made during that period that have just all been lost. There must be many. Right. So...
that's the trouble with the archaeological record, that pieces like this, are so scarce that they get too much focused on it. They're overthought when they probably would have been completely common at the time.
Yes.
Pieces like this.
Yeah. But we shouldn't ignore as well. I mean, the whole potential symbolic aspect of this, a woman with a goose. So, what is this? Is it something as simple as just a depiction of somebody at a moment who did put a goose on her head, or is it somebody who'd caught a goose and was carrying it home, or is it something that is really in the mythological realms? Because what Mike hinted at earlier on, but for example, we know about from Greek mythology the story of Zeus turning himself into a swan to seduce Leda and the Swan, famous story. Well, the thing is that any of those stories, we don't know where they actually came from. We know that our first awareness of them is in Greek mythology. But how old are these stories? And could this be reaching deep into the past and and be the origins of a far older story? Probably not, but we don't know.
But, the thing that the article doesn't talk about directly, or other articles as well, is that the authors of the paper go into it in, reasonable detail. It is that having looked at the way the wings are splayed across the back of the woman, and the fact that the goose head neck is wrapped round the woman's neck, they point out, well, actually, that's the mating stance of male grey-lag goose that would have been observed at the time. So, we can present you with any number of erotic depictions of the relationship between Zeus as a swan and Leda, and probably other mythical figures. I think he put it about a bit as a swan, didn't he, Zeus?
Zeus, he was a bad god, was Zeus. No shame, Zeus.
Yeah, indeed. What was the other? Nemesis, I think. Anyway, let's not go there. But yeah, the point is, viewed through that perspective, it does take on another very strong, what's the word? It's redolent, the myth and the ritual thing becomes stronger. That's the only word I can find at the moment.
That's probably fair.
When you look at it that way. And you can reverse that round and look at it completely innocently, as something, as an occurrence, a single event, or a single event in the imagination of the artisan that produced it.
It's an interesting aspect as well that Mike, you said earlier on, time-wise, we're not far away from the beginnings of Göbekli Tepe, and we know just how important animals were in that culture, and we can never lose sight of the fact that with all these aspects of archaeology, we've got what's left and we've got what's been found. And so, how extensive, how widespread was this connection of people's lives with animals? It must have been absolutely ubiquitous because, we distance ourselves from animals to a large extent now because we can just go down the supermarket and buy hot food. But back then, or take it, anywhere in history really, that the relationship with animals is obviously, it's an absolutely integral part of daily life, and
it is life. It is life. Because these people were not agriculturalists yet. By the time we get to this period, the Natufians were and earlier were well into having adopted a broad spectrum diet. They knew what was in season. They knew what was out. They knew this is why they were sedentary. I don't know if you noticed from photographs I've shown, but this settlement was made with stone. It had residential elements to it, but believe it or not, this find was made in the fill between a relatively square building and a more circular, curved, and the archaeologists are calling it this, a special building. Where have you heard that word before?
And
there's evidence of posts and all that kind of thing. So this is not a hunter-gatherer village. These are people that are settled. They manage. They're hunter-cultivators. Should we put it that way? Kind of, sort of, because they would have been doing all wild grass thing and stuff, but mostly animal-based.
They certainly like their flatbreads, that's for sure. But it's very true. I mean, it's our relationship with animals. I'm just going off on one now. It's just interesting, isn't it? How we don't know how to interpret this, and so take your pick, really.
I think that the takeaway from this is not to diminish the find at all, because it does give an insight, and the insight is that people enjoyed representing things. It was important. And this was probably one of many. It's probably not completely a one-off. And of all the things I think that have come out of, the ground around here, there's something such on a human scale about this. Göbekli Tepe, we've got the carvings from there and other places, but there's a symbolism about them that keeps them one step removed from interpretation. As it points out, there's a naturalism to this depiction that makes it more human and brings you closer to whoever it was that actually produced it in some way. I just doubt that, as it says in the first bit of the article, it said combining naturalism, light manipulation, and symbolic imagination, whatever that is. It reveals how early communities used art to explore the relationship between humans and the natural world. Not so sure about that. Yeah.
Do you know, it's the source paper. It's breathtaking. The depth of analysis that they've gone to. It truly it is. It's an astonishing piece of work. There are some of the interpretations, as we've said, I think be a little bit more cautious. I think. But no, actually, it reminded me of, whilst this is a lot later, but do you remember it was interpreted as shamanic, but a man buried with, he clearly had a whole outfit of feathers. It was Bronze Age in Siberia, and I think that
didn't his friend have some shades?
Yes, he did. His friend did have some shades, bronze eyepieces. But, you look at cultures around the world where fancy headdresses, we have this thing about feathers and it being awesome that we wear these things that emulate the birds. And you look at the lavish headdresses where the more feathers in a headdress, the hierarchical aspect of that. And so you can't fail to see the possible connection between, woman wearing a goose, possibly, and fancy headdresses. There you go. Woman with a goose.
Woman with a goose, 12,000 years ago. There we go. Before we close up, I think just like to reiterate, not in any way trying to denigrate the work of the archaeologists or denigrate their work in any way whatsoever. The work is fantastic, and we wouldn't be able to talk about it now were it not for the work that they've done. It's just down to interpretation. What can Goose Girl tell us? She tells us that somebody made something in the past, and that, and what they made is the important thing. It's the connection to that person that made that thing. We're on a hiding to nothing, trying to interpret it or make sense of it or aggrandize it in so many ways. So that's our take. Thanks for watching. On that bombshell, I think it's time to say bye for now. So cheerio from me and
from me, folks. Take care. See you next time.
Bye for now. We're getting better at doing sign-offs then. That was a bit...
Stop. And
I hope we haven't over-egged it, if that's not too much of a pun.